Ivan Pavlenko, From Family to Family, Chapter 3, Part 5.1, Working as a Storekeeper. Read by Natalia Buzova. On December 1946, there was a turning point in our lives. I was appointed as storekeeper of the collective farm. In those hungry times, it was almost a salvation. Then, all our food problems disappeared by themselves. We had bread, some groats of millet, oil, but we lived modestly. We kept a boar and a sow, a dozen and a half chickens, and later, when we moved into our own house, we also bought our own cow. I was at work every day from morning till evening, and in summer and autumn, I worked almost around the clock. Grain came from the field. It was dried on the stream, cleaned day and night with fans, and the seed material was also used on a dryer. The club drama cycle had to be handed over to Prokopenko. But from the very first day after marriage, Shura and I started thinking about how to earn money for our own house. In the photo, you can see Shura and Ivan Pavlenko in 1946. An unburnt log cabin stood in her garden. New foundations could be laid under it, a new roof made, and there would be a house. I submitted an application to the board of the collective farm, and I was allowed to cut one oak and elder for the roof. The oak stood on the island, tall, slender. People hired by me sawed it down and transported it in separate parts to the workshop, where it was scattered on the foundations. And I pulled the elms from the meadow with oxen together with Mitrofan. I made arrangements with the craftsmen from Lochvice. We also drank mohorich, alcoholic drink, but it was not necessary to complete the former Samila's house. Once I was told that Fedor Pogulyayev was selling his house and he was going to move to his single mother. I met him. We traded for a long time. The house was not bad from the outside and stood in a good place in the Mykhailiv region where there was fertile soil. The house was covered with iron. It had been built at revolution time by Antin Filimonov, who in the 30s was disarmed and taken to Solovki. There were two more buildings next to the house, a wooden barn and a brick walk-in cellar on which there was also a barn. Fedor and I agreed on a price of 16,000 karbovanцы. We sold my mother's barn in Lochvice for 7,000 karbovanцы, Shura's pig barn to Timofey Ivanovich Momot for 1,000 karbovanцы. The rest of the money was raised by selling the harvest from two gardens, mother's 50 hundreds and Shura's 35, and promised the brother-in-law's log cabin and the wood we had prepared for the roof. In April, my mother came home, and Shura and I immediately moved into our house. Shura also had Samila's bed, duvet, and pillows, a table, two benches, two chairs, a kitchen cupboard, and a portable indoor bench. And after some time, Pantelimon Yarovi made us a solid bed. Meanwhile, the spring sowing campaign was in full swing. And then I once again saw for myself how poorly people lived, how they, hungry and exhausted, worked from morning till evening in the fields. They did not have food cooked for them, but were given 200 grams of oatmeal in their hands at the end of the day. There was nothing else in their pantries. Rye, wheat, barley, buckwheat, millet, peas, everything was sent to the state last fall at the expense of honorary bread donation and payment. Oat was still there for the horses and pigs. It was also issued to those who went to work. The four men brought lists in the evening, and I dared each lucky collective farmer, as the newspapers wrote, 200 grams of food a day. It was received silently, with hidden anger, by yesterday's victorious frontline soldiers, as well as the widows of those soldiers who had died in battle defending their land and at the same time damned Soviet power. It used to be that the uncles would gather near the granary where daily outfits were issued to whom and where to go to work and start talking about how to live. Some frontline soldiers, I remember, said that Zhukov had promised that there would be no more collective farms if we defeated the enemy, but they remained as a means of pumping out all the fruits of peasant work for the realization of the ghostly idea of a world communist revolution. In June 1947, our son Hrisha was born. After giving birth, Shura was at home until the spring of 1948. Then, at the collective farm meeting, she was elected as a kindergarten teacher. For this work, she was paid 0.75%. For work as a postman, she had been previously paid the same amount, and as a nurse, she had been paid 180 karbovancy per month, while 16 kilograms of flour cost 600 karbovancy. Shura still remembers the songs she sang with her pupils during walks in the kindergarten. I'm a fox, I'm a sister, I don't sit idly. I grazed geese, went hunting, and today on Sunday I need to rest. I have to feed my little children and to make it better and to make it better in our house. I have to go to the grove to pick flowers. And one more. We have to cross the bridge, kids, to pick mushrooms in the forest. The little wolf rests on the little bridge. Children are not allowed on the bridge. He growls and growls. He clicks his teeth. I won't let you go. I won't let you go. Children, to pick mushrooms. The goat came out of the green grove. He angrily shouts to Vovchik. I'll stab you with my horns. I will trample you with my feet. The goats hit the wolf with its horns. The wolves rolled straight into the water. We are going over the bridge, over the river. We are carrying grass to the goat. Oh, thank you, horned goat, who's helped us drive away the wolf. The following games were popular in the nursery: Geese, Geese, Come Home, Cat and Mouse, Podolyanочка. In 1959-60, Shura worked as the head of the children's nursery, and for this she was credited with 1 day's work per day. In the summer, when the harvest began, the first bread arrived from the field to the granary. Tatiana Olshanska was the way. Once she sent the last batch of wheat to me without an invoice. She said that it was dark and she would write the next morning. From this reserve, I ground a bag of flour for myself and for her. I helped my mother and relatives as much as I could. People, although they were afraid of prison, still took risks and poured grains into their pockets and bosoms, considering it their own, and by hard work, and thus they saved themselves and their children from hunger. Apparently, the authorities also knew, especially at the district and regional levels, that the rural people were on the verge of survival. Therefore, for the first time in the post-war years, collective farmers started to receive half a kilogram of grain per working day. It was already a mini rescue. Meanwhile, our Victor had barely passed the 10th grade. He was especially lagging behind in mathematics. That's why Uncle Alexei took him to his farm for a year. My father used to help him as he studied at the university. My uncle was a teacher of physics and mathematics by profession, and in a year he trained Victor so much that he entered the Kiev Artillery College. But I also had to help my uncle financially to support Victor. In the spring of 1947, one more of my pre-war comrades at evening parties, Stepan Mikhailovich Sokolovsky, returned from the army. He had served in the Navy and was a foreman, a handsome, slender sailor, and also a dashing dancer. He performed not only sea apple dance, but also any couple dances flawlessly. The girls were just delighted. But he chose one, Halka Pavlovna Solonova, the daughter of the head of the collective farm. The wedding was loud and rich. Pavlo Yosipovich took 2 bags of white flour from the storeroom for himself and for his in-laws and 10 liters of oil. I don't know how he did it in the accounting department. I was Stepan's friend, a dance to the point that the sole of the boot flew off. The women tied it up with the harness for laughs. Stepan had returned from the army as a party member. With his arrival, a party organization was formed in the village, which included Zayats, head of the village council, Ivan Andreevich Romanenko, paramedic, Mitrofan Ivanovich Pavlenko, financial agent, and Stepan, who became an agent of Upomingzag. The secretary of the party organization was Ivan Romanenko, Uncle Peter's son-in-law. At the end of October 1948, Lenin Komsomol celebrated its 30th anniversary. The best Komsomol members were awarded certificates of the district committee as well as gifts from the collective fund. Sweatshirts, boots, handkerchiefs. I was presented with the certificate from the Central Committee of the Velkasem and the Ministry of Agriculture. In the same year, I was elected a member of the Bureau of the Lochwitzer District Committee of the Komsomol, and I was a member until November 1952. I said goodbye to the Komsomol in the 30th year of my life. What did my years in Komsomol give me? They gave a lot. It is not for nothing that they said that life is the best doctor and counselor. After the war captivity and the associated Stalinist ostracism, I was gradually reborn in the youth environment and gained the strength that was raging in me and was looking for a way out, something to stick to and something to pour into. It must be said that in those days there were not many people with secondary education, even in the district. The first and second secretaries worked in the district committee of the Komsomol after graduating from the teacher training school, and Grigory Shumelo had only 8 grades of education. Of the 30 employees of the party district committee, only 2 had higher education. The secretary of the district committee, who taught ideology, and the head department of agitation and propaganda. The rest had secondary or unfinished secondary. And there is nothing to say about the village. The vast majority of young people had finished the 4th grade or less, and they were not going to study or could not. Therefore, in this background, I clearly stood out, especially in the village. My knowledge, life experience, and practical activities quickly paved the way for the professional growth. The secretary of the Samozdran district committee added me into the list of reserve heads of collective farmers. I went through the Komsomol and a kind of school for a young political fighter, a future party politician. I knew how to draw up work plans, resolutions of meetings, and most importantly, speak eloquently.